Hello all, A Knife's Tale here, bringing you another knife review, and today we're going to be looking at this Kizer Genie. We'll jump right in, because there's not much else to say. This knife is in 154 cm, which it says right there, and micarta. And Kizer does pretty good micarta, even though this isn't the best micarta Kizer's ever done. Kizer does some pretty good micarta. This knife, as you can see, has a reverse looking hole that is a bit tight, and a front flipper. It is also an inset line lock on bearings. Let us jump into the specs real quick so we can start talking about this blade, or this knife. It has a 3 3/8 blade, a little over that, so I'm going to call that 3.4. And the entire thing comes to 7 3/4 in total handle, or in total overall length. The handle length is about 3 3/8. Kind of in between 3 1/4 and 3 3, or 4 inches and 3/8. Yeah, just longest it's pretty close to that. So 4.3. I'm going to call that because it is a little under. Let us make some quick comparisons. To the Civivi Elementum. I'm going to try and pick things up and stop being so mushmouth today. Don't know what's going on with me. Civivi Elementum small knife, Civivi Conspirator full size, and as you can see, this is a full size knife. It is shorter than the Conspirator. I don't know if you can quite... Yeah, it looks like it's actually even shorter than it really is. It's not that much shorter, but it is shorter. It's shorter in the handle, and the overall blade is very close. It might actually have slightly better ratios than the Conspirator. As is obvious, this is a very slim knife. It is not tall in the slightest, whether that be open or closed. This thing is very minimal in the pocket. It is barely more than a pen. Thickness, however, I'm going to compare it to the Conspirator because I think that's going to be coming closer. It's about the same to maybe a tiny bit thicker than the Conspirator, so it's got some thickness. But at the same time, when you get with such a svelte little knife like this, you kind of need to have a little bit of something to hold on to, and that's where they sort of give it to you. Zero that out. Almost half an inch on the dot. So yeah, it's about the same as the Conspirator, maybe a tiny bit. Is that thinner or thicker than the Conspirator? Let's see. I don't remember. It's a tiny hair thinner. Okay. Just a hair, though. Blade stock. 117 thousandths? Yeah, that's right in between 115 and 120, so I'm going to call that 117.5 thousandths. Behind the edge, this one's tricky. It's got a very small edge bevel, and it doesn't want to cooperate very much. Yeah, I'm going to call that 12 or 13 thousandths behind the edge, because it's got this really small edge bevel. It is very thin down here. However, the blade does not have a lot of room to drop, so it gets very thick very fast. So once you sharpen this a few times, you're going to have a much thicker edge. But that is the nature of having such a slim knife. As it sits, as it comes, yeah, it's surprisingly thin behind the edge for such a... I don't want to call that narrow, but such a short... No, just not a tall height blade, I guess. I don't know what that... What would that be? Someone say that in the comments. What's the best way to describe that? I mean, it's definitely the height of the blade, but it's a pain in the ass to talk about a little bit. Let us get into hardware. That is a T6. Why is that there? There's the T8. T8 body screw. I mean, pivot. Idiot. Rest is T6. I don't like seeing T6. This is a budget knife, but I don't like seeing T6. I mean, it's minimal. There's only 2 screws here. You're not going to have to flip the clip because it... Actually, you know what? I think this clip could be flipped. No. What am I saying? Idiot. Again, I'm being stupid today. It's not tapped for this side. They probably could have tapped it for this side, considering this part of my card is flat. I mean, there's a little bit of cutout and design element and chamfering there, but right here is pretty flat. They could have probably done that, so it could be flipped, but they didn't. So really, it's just these two. Have some good T6 Torx bits, and you'll probably be fine. I have taken this apart. I didn't really have a problem with it. They didn't start to strip out or anything, so... Yeah. Let's get a quick weight. 2.31 ounces. Yes. The ratios are excellent on this thing. If that is your thing, if that matters to you, this is a very light knife for giving a good amount of cutting edge. There is no play. Left, down, up, or right. And we are centered. That's something I found pretty consistent with Kizer's knives. They've always centered up really well for me. I don't know if I mentioned already, but this knife is definitely on bearings. It's got a really, really good detent. It's really, really snappy and sucks in. Yet, despite that, is not hard to front flip at all, despite having good retention. Which is a very thin line to walk on, and they hit it. Ergos are okay. The clip is mostly the problem. Without the clip, the ergos would probably be pretty great. But this is a deep carry clip and a budget clip, and yeah, you feel it. It's not uncomfortable, but it is there. It is slightly uncomfortable in this grip, but I don't know why I would be using this knife in this grip. This is definitely a sort of lighter use knife, let's call it. Plunge on this knife is interesting. It definitely gets thicker as you get back, but I can't 100% tell you if that's because the blade stock gets thicker as it goes back, as it just goes up because it gets thick quick, or it's a plunge problem. I don't think it's actually the plunge problem. I think the plunge actually stops up here. It's just the natural progression of thickness in the steel as you go up from the here to here. Which is nice to see. You're not going to have trouble sharpening this thing. It'll just get thick quick on you. Yes, the stop pin is unfortunately behind the edge, but it's down here. I think it's exactly down there. Yeah, it's down here, so you have more than enough room to play around with. They gave you all of this extra unsharpened thing, so you can definitely cut in a choil without having any issues. Then again, if you're cutting in a choil on this knife because you've gotten up to here, you probably should get a new knife, because this thing might not be cutting anything anymore. All in all, plunge grind's okay. This thing has a stonewash finish on its blade, which is okay. It's a little fingerprinty for a stonewash. I don't know if it's because it's reflective or what, but it's not bad. I don't like this much billboarding. I mean, this is pretty minimal for a lot of budget knives, so it's not that bad and it's not bothering me that much. But I kind of wish they just put their logo like right up there, real small, or wow, they put GE. I guess that's the. I mean, it is the Genie, but that might be the maker's logo. I don't know. Even if they just took it, made it a little smaller, and put it right here. Get rid of the Kizer. We don't need to see that. Just your logo, guys. Now the clip. I do not like this clip. The screws are flat underneath the clip, which is great. It's not hard in and out of the pocket. It's got a decent retention. What is a little bit hard in and out of the pocket is this flat space here. Why this thing has to flatten out like that and actually kind of cant down makes it a bit annoying to get in and out for the initial push into the pocket. It works fine other than that. But it's kind of just a weird clip to put on this knife. It doesn't really fit the knife very well. I have to admit, I'm tempted to see if there is a replacement clip that would work for this knife. I know Civivi does replacement clips. I don't know if any of theirs would work for Kizers, but if it does, I'd definitely consider an aftermarket titanium replacement clip. They're like $11 on Amazon or something, so I don't know if it would work for this knife, but it'd be really nice if it did, because this clip is just kind of odd. Honestly, if they were going to go for something fitting for this knife, I kind of think a wire clip would have fit this knife's aesthetic better. You're never going to not feel it with the budget clip, especially with a knife like this, that this is as slim as this. So you might as well just go for the wire clip, because it just sort of works better, and it usually doesn't feel bad, even if you do feel it. As you can see, this is a somewhat fidgety knife. Not super fidgety, because this is kind of tight in there. You can get it, no problem, or at least I can. I can even thumb flick it. But the access isn't wonderful. It's mostly just a... Well, that would have worked if I hadn't just hit my table. Getting used to being under a camera. Or on a camera, I guess. Yeah, you can do all the stuff with it, so... It works as a front flipper. It's not wonderful in fidgetability, but its deployment methods are pretty good, and that heavy detent, or snappy detent, makes it pretty satisfying. So, my overall thoughts on this knife. First of all, I believe this knife was recently discontinued, so you may not be able to find them. I think the original price on this knife was pretty consistently around $75, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was around $75, which, for 154 cm budget knife, with micarta, coming from Kizer, with pretty decent consistency, yeah. It just barely makes it into the budget territory. $75 is pretty much where I want to cut off. But I will give up to $80 for sort of leeway. So this just fits in to the budget category. Oh, and I should say that is a reverse Tonto, or a modified sheep's foot, which is kind of the same thing, and for the blade shape. So, my thoughts on this knife are that it's pretty darn good for a budget knife. It's got a good high-tier budget steel. It's not going to be a heavy-duty user. It's not going to be a knife that has a long sharpening lifespan. But it's kind of not meant to be. It's supposed to just be a very light use, almost gentlemanly knife. I think there was a carbon fiber version of this in S35VN that was more expensive. Not too bad, and even for that, at that tier, that it was pretty reasonably priced for that model too. That might be a little more gentlemanly, but this could be a little bit of a rustic kind of thing with the micarta. It's a recommendable knife so long as you're not trying to get a super slicer. Just all-day super slicer, it is not. It is sort of in its territory as the occasional make a cut, especially with the tip. It's got a pretty solid tip, so you might even, I don't suggest it, but even for knife this thin, because of that solid tip, you might actually be able to just pry a tiny bit more readily than you would with some other knives without worrying, because of that shape and how thick it is up there. So this knife definitely fits into a certain territory of what you're looking for. It's not just a universally go buy this budget knife because it can do all kinds of things pretty darn well. It's a little more specialized, a little more focused. But I like it. It's done well, and that action, despite being almost drop shot, it's not quite drop shot, but that's on the, like, this is before Kizer started doing the cutouts on their Tang, so this is like bad action for Kizer. And this is still pretty great. So quality is there, materials are there, and you just, really it just comes down to, are you looking for something that this knife offers? And that's really all that I have to say about this knife. So I'm going to wrap things up here and say, drop a like, drop a subscribe, drop a what are your thoughts? Who has one of these? Like I said, I'm pretty sure they're discontinued now, and they are sold out in a lot of places. So I assume this was a somewhat successful knife over its run time. Let me know. That's all for today, though. So I'm going to end things here. Bye-bye, and thanks for watching.